Yeah, welcome to the first, or technically like the second, but the first planned out podcast for Theorycrafting.
TC
Yeah, so
Roundtable.
today I am joined by many familiar faces, right? We'll go around and just kind of introduce each other. Yeah, whoever wants to get started, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jinx. I make podcasts now because I don't want to make YouTube videos anymore.
And Jinx is like kind of Jinx before he left Genshin was kind of like the starting point or the jumping point for a lot of people to get into like more meticulous things by Genshin. So yeah.
Yep. Our content tried to bridge some of the TC stuff to more of the casual audience, I guess. But now I just watch Tenten's videos and read shitposts on Keqingmains pretty much.
Don't we all? Okay, well, I'll go next. I'm Zajef. I stream Genshin, and I make a YouTube video once every 5 months.
Wow,
Zajef does math things. Zajef just did a really cool thing too.
Oh yeah, that's true. I just recently, just yesterday, got 36 stars on a free-to-play, 56 days old account that doesn't have Bennett.
Congratulations cool. on your suffering.
Yes. Congratulations on pulling a C1 Kokomi without ever pulling a Bennett. I
didn't pull a C1 Kokomi. Only
I thought you got a C1 Kokomi. Never mind.
No. Hey,
I did suffer with 8 Rosarias.
That's how you got 8 Rosarias.
Okay, I can go. I'm Tenten. I make YouTube video and I stream on Twitch. Thanks.
Hi, Tenten.
Okay.
Tenten is where I hear about all of the Chinese Genshin community stuff.
I speak Chinese and some Japanese, so I just basically kind of poured over the Chinese meta to NA, which is like you might have heard about some of it, like the national team, and Dragon Check and stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah, you can thank Tenten for that.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Okay. I'm Sitri. You guys probably seen some of my guides on YouTube and stuff, but I usually just hang out around Keqingmains, and I also lead the TC operations over one-shot funeral parlor. So.
Which is another Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sitri's my co-head over at Wangsheng and technically used to be my boss.
Oh.
I guess I'll just go next. I'm Ayzel. Do I just say everything? I'm just gonna say everything. I'm the vice president at Keqingmains. I'm the
Give us your resume.
At Wangsheng Funeral Parlor. I'm the head of Theorycrafting at Kazuha Mains. I'm a Yoimiya Mains and G Mains Theorycrafting staff member. I do a bunch of math on both leaked stuff and released stuff. Probably still do less math than Zajef, but I like Excel.
You probably do more.
Nah.
Zajef been busy with his free-to-play account lately.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Been busy actually playing the game, unlike me.
Theorycrafter playing the game? What the hell is this?
Yeah, Ayzel actually play game. It's actually funny. I had my resin capped for 3 days before the podcast, and
God,
maybe I should actually play the game.
Cringe.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say we just go over like how we've all been doing and what have we been up to. Yeah, I've been actually super busy as of late. I'm in graduate school now, so I have significantly less time to work on things like the Theorycrafting library or the or in general play the game. But I try to make time here and there.
Recently,
anyone else doing anything interesting?
Recently I kind of ran out of shit to do in Genshin, so I started doing duos runs of the of Abyss 12, trying to get 9 stars. I managed to do it with 2 teams of 2 4 stars or 4-star weapons, Sucrose Fischl and Ben Xingqiu, I am now decided to suffer and actually ascend my Noelle to Ascension 6 so I can see if I can do a Noelle Ning on one half. But yeah, I'm still enjoying the Genshin I play for like 10 minutes a day, but I've mostly just been working on my other stuff outside of Genshin lately. And occasionally doing podcasts like this one or the ones I do with Tuner.
Anything
So,
special happening with you? The rest of you guys?
Life's been pretty busy for me as well. I'm currently working on some real life projects with like NASA and stuff, but
Ooh.
well, I just finished rewriting the EULA guide. I've been doing like a shit ton of like team comp calcs.
NASA Giga Chad.
NASA
Team
Giga
calcs
Chad.
are just so much effort. I hate them.
I'm a
Zajef,
9 to
you
5
finally
gamer.
doing team comp calcs?
Well, I'm doing the team count, the calcs for that shadow bug with EULA that was his chase turn. So there was a bug with Shatter where apparently Shatter procs before freeze ends, and I'm just trying to calc to see if like there's any potential with it.
I'm gonna hazard a guess and go with the no. Alright, and then Tenten, it was your birthday yesterday, right? How was your stream?
Oh yeah.
You
Oh,
drink
it's
a
your
lot?
birthday? Happy
I
birthday,
didn't drink that much. Oh, I drank it like on Saturday, and I woke up like really bad hungover, and then I was like, wait, I actually maybe don't even want to stream. But other than that, I was like, I was working on the 3D printed allergy of the end project. I bought all the electronics for it. I'm gonna be soldering it whenever I actually get it printed. I have a 3D printer at home. I'm printing one right now. Well,
Damn.
See.
if only I can actually get it to work at least.
Yeah,
Good
I
luck with
actually
that.
ordered a Kazuha cosplay, but it's not coming for a couple months.
Oh no.
Damn.
Other news, I dyed my hair like gray now.
Oh.
Been talking and catching up with a friend from a long time ago. Been having a lot of fun with that.
So arts in
yeah.
grad school and already going for the sexy professor look. I see.
Maybe.
You got Chad.
Okay. I guess we can just get started. Right?
Officially start the topic.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing super pertinent that changed from our topic list. The only thing that really happened overnight was obviously they revealed that the next patch will have Goro and Ito. We'll probably be avoiding talking about them too much, other than the fact that they're both Geo. Yeah, there's nothing really to say. We don't know anything about them.
Yep.
So,
Wait, hold
At
on.
most, we could speculate about what we would like to see out of
Is this
Geo
a
units,
role-free
but
stream, by
shrug.
the way?
Well, hear you directing that ad.
No, I'm just curious in general. Before we start voting.
okay. Are there any topics on the topic list that you guys wanted to touch down on first?
I'm totally not looking up the topic list again because
Yeah,
I
I'm not
forgot to
looking.
open it.
So just go from top to bottom. I just go from
Up
top
to
to
bottom.
bottom. Unless you have.
Okay. So
Probably-
the first topic is practicality versus power. In Theorycrafting, how much versatility or ease of use should we factor in when discussing meta? For example, Hu Tao is very high damage if she can be played well, but should we be considering these kinds of cancels or not?
So-
Anyone have like
yes?
any intro thoughts or anything like that?
I think it depends. Some of them you do, some of them you don't. Some of them Hu Tao cancel is one that you consider in, but you also have to explicitly say this is with cancel. And I guess it's important to note the difference between with cancel and without cancel, because it's pretty big on Hu Tao.
Yeah, it
But
depends on how
for-
big a difference it is.
Yeah, it depends on how big the difference is and how like actually practical it is. Some other stuff like wave dashing and dragon strike a lot less practical, and usually we don't count those in.
Yeah, and on certain characters, good animation canceling does improve DPS pretty significantly, like on Hu Tao, but on some characters it's a lot less noticeable. You're looking at single % increases, so it's nice to have, but really not necessary.
Like, I think like the main argument for like practicality versus power, it really shifts, depends on what kind of population and audience are theory crafters trying to cater to, like with our work and our calculations. Because most of the time, like factoring for human errors or just like imperfections in play is very hard in TC. Almost all TC, especially if you want to do optimization, you have to factor for perfect play and also proper subset distribution, which is, again, even though like we try to make it realistic with a lot of like new standards now, you guys can check over like new subset standards for calculations and Keqingmains. It's still very artificially manufactured and not something I would say is natural for most players. So, for like, there's some bias here with me, but I'm a big fan of like practicality, like, because I think like Theorycrafting in general should like cater to the most common denominator, and for like of those who like interested in Theorycrafting, like we shouldn't try to cater towards super casual who doesn't really read or care about what we do, but our cal should be casual and like factoring in enough ease of use for like, I would say at least 50% of like the people of our audience. So I'm not really a big fan of like assuming like someone can do like 10 N2C cancels on Hu Tao,
Frame perfect
for example.
N2Cs, yeah.
Mhm.
My take on it is just, it's okay to talk about them and it's okay to like include them, but the focus generally shouldn't be on them, because the reality is most players that seek out guides or tier lists or strengths of units or whatever, they're so like you said, right, somewhat casual, not
Mhm.
like like they do care a little bit, but they probably don't play 5 hours a day.
They want to
And
know a character isn't necessarily hot trash, but they don't necessarily care about what the peak performance of a character could be.
yeah, exactly. And like
Yep.
I think that like often, specifically with Hu Tao, I think it's good to assume like decent-ish play, and then if asked for more information or if you want to include more information, you say like that's how she performs, and then you can make her perform better by doing like very good cancels.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
why.
just kind of. Oh yeah, Jinx.
Sorry, I was just saying that's why back when I used to do frame counting for new characters and whatnot, and this mostly started with Klee because Klee was kind of the first release we had with where good animation cancels could make a huge frame difference in the character. But like with Klee and then later with Hu Tao and other characters, I always factored into my frame counts like 5 to 6 frames away from frame perfect for like average calcs, since I think a tenth of a second of discrepancy is a decent range of error for someone who's pretty practiced at the cancels.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really personally calculated for like actual frame perfect inputs.
Theorycrafting in Keqingmains has kind of grown to the point where there's just so much content to like cover, and there's so many different types of people who engage with the game in so many different ways. Oftentimes I'll get criticized by like my own Theorycrafters who say, Art, why isn't the Theorycrafting library like have 100% accurate frame perfect cancels? And then at other times I'll get complaints about some guides being far too technical. It's a hard balance to really strike out. I personally don't have like too much of a stake in it. I think sharing information in different medium works differently. So like, I probably wouldn't post anything about Hu Tao's animation cancels in a like infographic, but if I'm making like a detailed guide for the website, sure, I would let you include it. In general, for these types of things, it's I don't know. It's a lot of the times these texts or like these things we find out are bordering on unpracticality or only for the people at the highest end. And to that, I would say, like, I think it's unfortunate that, like, a lot of the main servers have kind of died off as KQM has picked up traction. So, like, normally in other games, you would find, like, sub-communities where people could find these types of, like, in-depth detail for that specific character. Right?
And then you also run into the issue where most of the contents, especially like the more popular content on like YouTube and such, are generally kind of swing hard to the other side, where it's a lot heavier opinion based, and you don't necessarily know if the recommendations for team comps or for builds or for play or whatnot like are good or not from like a low to play player perspective.
Mhm.
And the middle ground is where things get difficult. Like trying to find a place that isn't too technical, but also you know you can trust that when they're telling you that this team works well, you trust that it works well.
Yeah.
I think the issue is just technicality can kind of be on a scale sometimes, and it's kind of hard to say, like, for example, like Hu Tao 8 N2 CJ with C0. Like, theoretically, that's not even like too difficult. There have been people, I know Lax did this, who's one of our other TC editors, who plays on mobile, managed to do 9 N2 CJ on mobile. And on one end, you have things like 8 N2 CJ, 10 N2 CD. And then on the other hand, you have like 16 N1C with wave dash. And you also have like Noel shield break dragon strike. And there's just like a very wide variety of what you would count as like highly technical play. Just because you can like do that like macro level optimality and you can calculate for that. It's just like difficult to say at what point do we say this is no longer humanly possible.
Yeah.
I think it's more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So one thing like I find pretty interesting is that like power in a lot of sense actually increase practicality, because if like you watch like a lot of like gameplay videos, when someone is like very like, if you see like they're very overgeared for certain content, it doesn't really matter if like they play perfectly or like even close to like what we could consider optimal, like casually optimal. They would still clear the content and like the speed that you would say like they're playing really well. And like that, it really skews people like power rating of characters, and also skew practicality and like how easy a character is to play. Like an example I like to use is Hu Tao versus Zhongli. So this is a very touchy subject. I know, like, unlike Hu Tao Zhongli, who's stronger power level wise, I will not go into that. I just want to go into that, like, if a player tell me like if they have to and like they're new to the game, or like they're new to the game, I would 100% recommend them to play Zhongli just because of how easy it is to pick her up and just play her.
You just have to learn the correct buttons to press in order.
Yep, you just have to learn the correct buttons, yes. Like, honestly, it's so much easier to like play Zhongli, and like there's a lot less caveats to Zhongli outside of entry funneling and like when to cast your ult, compared to how like when should you dash here, because sometimes dashing will have great distance and you lose DPS and stuff. And
sometimes sometimes you want to jump, sometimes you want to short hop for more animation or for lower frame count, sometimes you want to hop to a different position so you can collateral enemies. Like, there's a lot of thinking that goes into what cancels and what you want to do when with a Hu Tao.
Yeah, I do think though, like, one of the main problems with Xiangling is that, yeah, she's really easy to practically play, but you do need to know what you're doing. You need to know that you want to cast your Bennett burst before you cast your Xiangling burst, which is something that a lot of the very, very casual community just doesn't give a shit about. Like, that's fine, right? But then it becomes hard to say, like, when is Hu Tao stronger than Xiangling? Because like it depends on how much you know about the game. It depends on how much you're willing to go for like mechanical cancels. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I was doing some. Oh, Art. Yeah.
I think like this issue is like especially compounded now that the disparity between like players who know what they're doing and like casual players is like so wide now. Kind of like what Zajef was saying, like the difference between like a casual player and like someone who kind of knows what they're doing is almost like unfathomable now.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
something
a
that a lot of
huge difference.
not a lot of theorycrafters like really consider this kind of stuff, but there really is not a good there's not that many good entry points into like learning how to play the game better.
Especially since we have a
And
year of practice and study
yeah,
at this point.
and on top of that, it's compounded by the fact that like the investment difference changes a lot of things as well.
Oh, yeah.
So if your Hu Tao is super stacked out, like I'm talking like 90 crit rate, 180 crit damage or above, she doesn't really need to do that many animation count. You can just monkey brain your way through most things, and you'll
Yeah,
just kill it through raw damage.
Yep.
she has front-loaded damage, which means that like if you don't get to your downtime, her DPS is fucking massive.
Her favorite teams are also like hyper Tao setups where it's what her, Sucrose, Xingqiu, and like Amber or Xinyan. So your Xingqiu and your Amber could literally be level 1 and do their job in that comp.
That being said, a team like that does require a similar understanding of the game as Changling teams.
That's
It's not
fair, yeah.
more.
I would argue even more. That's pretty
Yeah.
like it's not very well known because honestly, there aren't really
Yeah,
that
most of it
many
is on
like
Hu
good
Tao
guides
Meld.
on how to play Hu Tao.
It's
Yeah.
really about floor versus ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would say Shuttling floor is considerably higher than Hu Tao. I'm assuming. But like a really good player will really shows you like how strong Hu Tao can be. Like Chaser, for example. Like
Mhm.
The floor versus ceiling thing, it's just dependent on how good of a player you are. Like at the very, very lowest end, people who like don't know to cast Bat Burst before selling, don't know to battery selling, I feel like her floor would probably be lower. Like I was doing a calculation yesterday just because I was
Yeah.
curious. In Xiangling, if you don't cast Bat Burst, if you don't have VV and like Sucrose EM and TTDS, like those things increase her damage by 2.5 times.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like
It's
Yup.
a
don't
huge
do that.
difference.
Yeah, like sure, maybe on Hu Tao you're going to do like 6 charged attacks instead of 10, and that's like a huge difference. But on Xiangling, the floor is like literally 2.5 times as much if you actually play her correctly. So like if you're at a medium level where you know to like vaporize Xiangling's burst, you know to cast Bat's burst before it, then yes, Xiangling will probably have a higher floor. But at the very lowest end, I think Hu Tao will still outperform.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, like sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, also with Hu Tao, there's this, from having like I haven't touched Hu Tao in like 2 months, and I started playing her again like a week ago or so.
Mhm.
And an interesting thing I'm noticing with Hu Tao is that when you're at like the lowest floor and you're not doing any animation cancels, you're probably just doing like N1Cs with no jumps and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You generally speaking aren't missing vapes just because of how little extra attacks you're getting in there. But then when you start like doing cancels, but you're not doing the correct cancels for the situation, you can start missing vapes because you're actually wiping the hydro. And then when you get past that again and you're doing the perfect cancels for every situation, you're not missing any vapes. And there's this, it just creates this kind of weird curve where even once you start learning how to do cancels, if you don't know the correct ones to do for the situation to make sure you're keeping a hydro aura consistently, you'll still miss vapes sometimes and drop your DPS a bit. Hu Tao's complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're writing a Hu Tao quick guide for the KQ on YouTube right now, and one thing I wanted to include in the script was like we do explain like some of the cancels, like jump after if you have C0 and dash after if you have C1. But I wanted to include a line that was basically like, if you don't think that you can do cancels correctly, just don't bother because it's probably worse than just not doing them.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, this kind of goes into the next one, or what we were talking about earlier about how hard it is to really strike a balancing point. The next topic is difficulty in discussing controversial topics. So, not to brag or anything, guys, but we're pretty like quote unquote influential, right? Or at least we have like communities that will give a shit if we get something wrong and stuff like that. So there are difficulties in having meaningful and comprehensive conversations around hot TC topics. Whether it's being too non-communicative, or like in guides or announcement style posts, or too restrictive, meaning it's hard to discuss theory crafting properly over a comment thread on Reddit, Twitter, or it's too
Oh, God.
one-sided, where people on Twitch, for example, have one-sided conversations, things like that, or they just don't provide enough nuance, and it's hard to really flesh out an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
I mean, I can go into like the Twitch part a bit because
Mhm.
I mean, I think recently I've been better at trying to provide nuance, but like in the past, I've definitely been too black and white in some things because I assumed certain things about my audience. Like, for example, they're not going to be doing 10 and 2CD on Hu Tao, and instead of saying like this is with that assumption, I just glossed over it, and because of that, it ended up being somewhat misleading, right? Because it was accurate with my assumptions, but I didn't communicate my assumptions well enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think another big issue with Twitch too, like on the whole one-sided thing, is something that's even no matter how good a streamer may be at trying to add nuance to their arguments and their descriptions. Like anytime I was streaming new stuff, I tried to provide as many caveats as possible when
Mhm.
talking about things. But no matter how good you are with it, the reality is that the feedback you get is from your chat, and your chat is going to be overwhelmingly biased to agreeing with you. And like even
Yeah.
if you aren't actively trying to like suppress any, differing opinions or controversial things or whatnot in your chat, regardless, the vast majority of your chat are there because they like you and are likely going to agree with what you say and are much less likely to present a dissenting opinion versus something like, a discussion in TC General or something in like KQM or something where you might get more people talking about the other side of things or providing counterpoints.
Mhm.
But your Twitch chat is, even if they don't intend to be, just the pure numbers are going to be in the favor of agreeing with you and not providing counterpoints.
In the spirit of Twitch chat agreeing with you, I've actually like recently, I've come across a bunch of like Reddit threads where some of my viewers were shitting on people who called Hu Tao good in certain situations
Mm-hmm.
and providing like out of context clips from me
Yep.
to support that. I was like, bro, don't do that.
Hashtag being a content creator. I don't know how many of
Yeah.
you guys played Monster Hunter, but this was a huge problem Tuner and I ran into back when we were on Monster Hunter channel.
Mhm.
Because, like, our main video series was the meta set series, because it's not like in Genshin where RNG is a huge factor, and whether one set is better on a character or not depends largely on your substats, as well as what other units you have, etc., etc., and not everyone has the same units and constellations. In Monster Hunter, everyone gets the same toys if you grind enough to get the decos you need. So,
Mhm.
ultimately, there is going to be one or two armor sets that do mathematically give you the highest amount of damage possible, and that's what we did guides on. And we ran into this huge problem where people who we don't consider a part of our community, because Tuner and I, especially Tuner, have done a very active job trying to not have an elitist community and tell people to not be toxic and to allow casual players to enjoy being casual if that's how they enjoy the game. But we have a lot of people who would reference our videos and reference our numbers and our math and use it as ammo for them to be elitist toxic shits to anyone who wanted to run any kind of defensive skills or something like that in the game.
Yeah.
And that was a huge problem we ran into, is just our content being used as ammunition for that kind of thing. And
I've actually
not too
had
much
to
you can do
cut
about that.
back. I've actually had to cut back how much I really chat in Theorycraft in general, because the term I use is people like to weaponize the things that I say.
I mean, yeah, you're the
So
head.
yeah,
So.
in Theorycraft in general, I like to post literally like the most random stuff ever, but people actually like take it really seriously, and I've had to take a lot of steps to really like pull back on this. There is a problem with like people just kind of weaponizing the things that we do, and just kind of taking the spirit of theory crafting and far like removing it, stripping all of that away, and then solely focusing on like the meta conclusions that we arrive at. And one of the problems is like people using the theory crafters at KQM said blah 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 blah.
Lol.
Or Art said that Chi-Chi was good on stream. That means Chi-Chi is good, and then I get flamed by like Asian guy Genshin or
I can't
something.
tell you how many goddamn times I've said something offhandedly in like our Mathalos Discord server, and someone screenshotted it and was like, "See, Jinx said this," and and that's why I don't talk in there anymore. I haven't talked in there in like a year and a half.
Yeah, KQM really had a problem with it, so I actually recently just nuked all the colored roles for Theorycrafters.
Lol.
Gave them a sticker instead, and then made sure like people who don't like shitpost all the time have a red name.
I'll be right back.
I hate it when
has a really big problem with this.
dude. Okay, this is the biggest thing I hate is people would just take one thing and then forward it to others. Doesn't matter what it is. Like it could be a message, could be a clip, could be a video, but like if your argument is just forwarding someone else thing to another person, it's showing me that you don't actually understand what it is. So for example, pretty commonly someone would be like, oh my god, let's pretend, like hypothetically, it'd be like, Chi-Chi is actually a really good character, you don't know what you're talking about, and then they'll link a video as their argument that's not theirs, and it just show me like you're not even understanding why Chi-Chi is a good or not good character. You're literally just taking someone else's word and shoving it into another person's face.
Yep.
And it's not like, oh wait, is my volume really bad? Oh.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's spiked up a bit.
Fix your mic. Yeah.
You are peaking a bit, so you might be a bit close to your mic.
Now Sitri is the good mic. Tenten.
Scuffed mic Sitri.
Scuffed mic.
Too based.
Let me move it. But just like what I like to see is instead of just someone forwarding a argument or video to another, just provide like at least even just one reason or two. For example, you can say, no, Chi-Chi is not a good character because she doesn't generate any energy, and you can see more about this from this video. That's what I would like to see instead, because that show me you try to understand why Chi-Chi is not a good character before you make that argument to someone else. Like that's all I want to see. Just instead of just forwarding another person's word, just at least include one reason. So
It's fine to use these other things as evidence to support your argument, but you need to understand the arguments.
I think that problem's actually been very present with Kokomi.
Oh,
I think-
hugely. Yes.
People underestimate the hell out of her. I'm not saying she's great. I consider her a fine-ish unit, slightly better than Barbara, which I consider to be a fine-ish unit as well. But like, she's not the worst 5-star we've ever had, and not
Nope.
even close to it.
Dude,
I
actually have
I
such a
don't think
bad
you will.
problem with that. Alright, how many of us here have been afraid to say that Kokomi is like pretty good or like decent?
I
mean,
would be
I-
afraid to say if it weren't for the fact that I don't do this full time
I'll say
anymore,
Kokomi is
but
good.
if I was still doing this
much
full
to
time,
say.
then yeah, I would have to be really fucking careful about wording that. But
I am, because the thing is, there's also people that say Kokomi's like child power creep. And
Okay, I know exactly who you're talking about because people send me this clip literally every time I fucking stream. Art, do you hear that? This guy said that Kokomi is power creep. I'm just like, man,
it's
you're
it's
gonna
really
unlock me.
hard.
Stop it.
You know, like, I'll be honest, Kokomi is definitely not as bad as people make it out to be, and I hate Echo Chamber in general. I hate how there's an Echo Chamber going both ways. Like, when a character is somewhat good, everyone just praise them to the top, and at the same time, when a character is somewhat bad, everyone like dumpster them at the bottom. It happened with Yoimiya too. Like, people kind of dumpstered Yoimiya after people found out like she's not that good, but Yoimiya at the end of the day is okay. Like, the reason why Yoimiya is not good is because Xiangling is better, not because Yoimiya herself is bad, right?
I think also people forget the difference between relative and absolute power level. Because, like, relative power level, yeah, Yoimiya is weak compared to other pyro options that probably use similar teammates to her. But also, I cleared the Abyss 12 9 stars with 2 teams of 2 4 stars or 4-star weapons as long as your team has good synergy and you have enough investment, you can probably clear the hardest content in the game 9 stars right now. Yoimiya is not so weak you can't clear 9 star. You can't clear the Abyss 9 stars with a C0 Yoimiya.
I think there's only very few units that if you decide to use them as your carry, you're actually gonna struggle. Like maybe Xinyan, maybe Amber, and like I mean Amber
melts single target's pretty fucking nuts. It's just hard as shit to play.
In single target, it's fine.
Yeah,
but overall, it's like very weak.
And, like, Chamber 1 will be hard.
Yep.
But I'll be honest.
There's like, there's like my bad.
Okay. I was gonna follow up with the original thing. It's like while Kokomi might not be that bad, I'll be honest, like I'm actually okay portraying her as being bad because ultimately, even though she's not that bad, it's not like she's worth the role. So I rather the conclusion that people have is that she's not worth the role, rather than saying, hey, she might be worth the role if you're in this one very, very niche scenario or something like that. Like I would just rather the solution be
it's better that people don't spend money.
I would just rather be easier accept the conclusion in that case. Especially I don't want people to get the idea, oh, Kokomi is actually good, because to be honest, she's not.
She's good at what she does. But what she does is not that useful.
I think I disagree with that. I think she's not that good at what she does, but what she does is kind of broken. Because you look at how useful Hydro application is in this game. You look at how you unironically have animal carries that run Electrocharge comps, because Electrocharge plus Swirl on an animal unit that builds full EM is actually good damage.
Yeah, very.
You look at how many Pyro units are considered to be strong. You look at how the Cryo carries rely on freeze, and you understand just how strong Hydro off-field application is. And I think Kokomi's biggest problem is just she needs to go back on field every 10 seconds to keep that application, and that application is relatively slow with a low amount of units, which means that it's not really enough to function with the Pyro carries, but it is enough to function with the Cryo carries. And like she is quite good in freeze teams, but the main problem is just like she's not really that much better than Barbara at it, because she doesn't really do any damage.
That's what I was kind of been saying. Like, Kokomi is like really good at being a Hydrobot as long as you're not trying to vaporize it, because it's so dog water for everything else.
The only time it really works is with Zhongli and she's on field and they're not moving away from her elemental skill.
Which is literally impossible.
There's a lot there's a lot of deliberate blindness in like power comparison, in my opinion. And like one thing I want to like touch on is, at what point does like controversial topics become just a I see like there are two main arguments I see around controversial topics. The first one is that if Unit X can 36-star Abyss, like usually comfortably, or like with the comp that have good synergy with them, then they're viable and the conversation can just end right there. Or do we start looking into comparisons? Because a lot of units, like units that we consider like not that good, or like even like if we use Tenten scale, like around a 2 out of 5, can still clear Abyss very comfortably. But we wouldn't like recommend people to like roll for them or like invest in them. So at what point do we consider like clear Abyss 36-star good? Or when like most units can, or if the case where most units can 36-star Abyss comfortably, do we start like not using that standard as for power?
I think the main problem with that is, while we haven't really seen character power creep, we have to some extent seen content power creep, where the Abyss is significantly harder than it was before, and it's been getting harder gradually since the first Abyss where we had Lectors. And characters that can right now relatively comfortably clear Abyss but are weaker than others might not actually be able to do that anymore if they keep doing this, right?
Yeah,
I think
personally hate the argument. I really hate when people say like anything can be viable if you invest into it enough.
I mean, that's not true. You need good teams.
Not-
If
yeah, you do
everything
need
was
very-
viable with enough investment, Envy would have 9-starred every Abyss.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
True.
usually
Yeah.
the counter argument I can bring up is people don't 36-star, and that showed you the Abyss is still somewhat hard for some people. Like if Abyss was truly easy and you can 36-star with whatever, people would be 36-starring left and right. People wouldn't be struggling, and Velocity wouldn't have to do his 9-star or Abyss run every single Abyss reset.
I do want to. Sorry, I just want to interject here. I actually don't think Envy's investment is actually all that high, because he does not do nearly enough artifact domains, and his artifact stats are actually kind of weak. Because he wants to get like every character and every weapon he uses to like max level and max talents, and like right now, from what I've seen, his artifacts lag behind his characters quite a bit. So I don't think Envy's the best investment of like if you invest into them. He's definitely good, but like the if you invest into them, I don't think he's the best example.
Right,
of it.
but that's the point. It's like
Zajef's free-to-play series is the best example.
when we say invest into them, what investment are we talking about here? Like, are we talking about a casual play investment? Are we talking about someone like Zajef free-to-play series investment? Are we talking about Velocity's investment? The investment level that you need differentiate so much between characters. Like when people say you can clear Abyss with everything, but it's not like anybody trying to do it for Xingqiu. Why? Because it's not efficient. Xingqiu is not good at clearing Abyss, and so nobody does it. So you could clear it with Xingqiu. It just people don't do it because it's not efficient. So it's the same reason why people end up playing the strong character anyway, like Ganyu and Xiangling. It's because people actually want to beat the Abyss efficiently. And similar to what Zajef has said, if they change the Abyss to be harder, you could clear with Xingqiu
they've
now.
already been doing that,
and there's no guarantee you could clear with Xingqiu again in the future. So it actually logically makes sense to play the more meta unit, because not only it ensure that you could clear potentially the next Abyss as well, but just because they're generally easier and lower investment to clear.
It kind of goes back to like practicality versus power, right? Like at what point do like people like doing like very like self-sabotaging comms just to prove that anything can 36-star Abyss becomes like it's just start become unrealistic. Like they're like unrealistic and like assuming people play super well, but there's like it's not realistic either. Like assuming like people gonna play like at envy level where they only use free to play characters
with no constellations and craftable weapons. Gross.
I think like this mostly comes from a misunderstanding about what Theorycrafters would call like good or broken versus like what a casual player considers good or broken.
Yeah.
It is true that Theorycrafting kind of started off as like, how do we clear the Abyss fastest and the most efficient?
I mean, in the first few months of the game, we didn't really have much investment to put into units unless you were a whale who was refreshing.
We're kind of at the point right now where it's not really about like being the most efficient, it's just efficient enough. There's a threshold for like players, right? So like you don't need to play Hu Tao perfectly. You don't need to pull like Ganyu or anything, but it's just so much easier if you do. And the level of investment that you need on these characters that are just, you know, better. I know Ziox tweeted something similar to this and he caught a lot of flack for it, but like it's true. There are just characters that are just built different compared to the rest of the roster.
Cough, Ganyu, cough.
It is not something that you can just make up with artifact stats. There is no way that Xingqiu is going to outpace Ganyu in like any reasonable amount of assumption, right? Like it's just it exists, but that's not why Theorycrafters say something is bad or good.
Yeah. Well,
and
that's why
care whether or not like we like the character or not. Like
cough, Keqingmains, cough.
Yeah, we will evaluate something like
at one point it becomes really pedantic and like it just becomes a terminology debate, right? Like at one point it's just like we say something is strong and people just ask like what is strong. If you say something is broken, we would just say what is broken. And like it's just it doesn't really go anywhere. It's like a
That's-
very unproductive conversation.
It's part of
Mhm.
why, at least in my mind, I think relative power level is more important, and why when
Yeah.
back when I was actually making videos about Genshin and stuff like that and doing it for my job. I always try to define power level as who got the most DPS for their team out of investment, or the most value for their team out of investment.
Mhm.
And I think relative power levels are an important discussion because, like, if you have a Diluc versus a Zhongli, which one are you going to prioritize? Because they're going to use the same units. They're going to be in the exact same role on a team. If you have a Kazuha or a Sucrose for this team, which one are you going to use for this role, etc., etc.? Like, you have a Xingqiu and you have a Childe, or you have a Xingqiu and you have a Kokomi. How do they compare with each other, and can they be replacements for each other? I think that's more important because ultimately, vape teams are obviously incredibly strong, but they're not the only team in existence. There are other teams that have strong synergy. You don't have to use Zhongli in a vape team. You can use her for a reverse melt enable team. Like, there are lots of different teams you can run that have strong synergy and are strong, just depending on what units you have and where their relative strengths are.
Yeah, I made a document a few weeks ago.
I actually really like that document. I think it's really good.
Yeah, and instead of saying like strong or weak or whatever, I use the terms top meta, which is the lowest amount of investment needed to clear, meta, which is reasonably low, viable, which means can clear with high investment, and shit, which is like you actually need to be a huge whale with R5 Skyward Pride to make Xinyan work. And like the sheet itself is, I mean, I can share my screen.
Yeah, I think I actually really like that. I think moving to using terminology like in the meta or not in the meta is really good. I try to do that with one of my last videos as well. It's like I said like, oh, Chao, instead of saying like Chao is a really good unit, I just say Chao is a meta unit, and I think that's given people a good idea of what Chao is.
Yeah, and like what I have is I have a strength. I have how much they rely on Bennett and Xingqiu, a few of their good teams / strongest teams, and then strengths and weaknesses, and then additional notes.
Is that Comic Sans?
Yes.
Gross.
Why?
Because Comic Sans is the, as far as I know, the easiest font to read for people that have
It is true.
dyslexia or
it's the reason why
that's
Comic Sans is
interesting.
designed. Yeah.
That is fair.
That is interesting.
also because it's funny to write things in Comic Sans
Lol.
and then have people question their validity because it's Comic Sans.
I'll be right back saying you got vape juice.
No problem. So we can skip around on the topic list because the next one is kind of not really related, but you did kind of bring it up, Zajef, here. How much does a unit dependency matter? This is often brushed over this is often brushed over the importance of unit dependencies or replacements as a factor in power level. A big aspect of Childe's strength is freeing up Xingqiu for Team 2 in the Abyss, and it's the same for Hu Tao or Bennett. I can probably start with this one. I think
Hey, I made this talk.
This topic is actually really pertinent now, considering Kokomi is out. Is what I'm thinking. Like, Kokomi kind of is like the third Hydro like applier, right? We're kind of getting to the point where like, okay, well, you have like a lot of these units, like if you have Mona, if you have Childe, and you have Xingqiu already, there's not really a reason to pull for Kokomi because her strength relative for your account is just not that high. You already have like the checkboxes in terms of like the Hydro units that you can use and clear perfectly fine. So it does matter a lot, I think. How much does unit dependency matter? I think we can all just say like one or two words really, and like you would kind of get the point across. Raiden Beto. And that's it. It matters a lot.
Lol.
Yeah.
If only Raiden worked with Beto, she would be like an actual good, like she would be a really good character.
Yup.
I was forced to play Raiden and Beto together on my free to play because like I have 8 good units and that's it. And like I'm including Electro MC in those 8 good units. So like yeah, it's a bit of a yikes, but like it just made me realize just how much stronger Raiden would be if it
Mhm.
actually worked with Beto, because I had to like alter my rotations, use my Beto
Mhm.
burst like at the start of the rotation, and I'd still, if I wanted to have good rotations, I'd still be missing out on like 4 to 5 Beto procs because I had to use Raiden, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
and also like to address the baseline question of like how important are unit dependencies, I think the main problem with that is that they're very important for certain players and completely irrelevant for others, which
Depends
makes
if
it
you care
really
about
hard
the
to
Abyss.
quantify. Yeah, I mean, it's not just depends if you care about the Abyss. It's also who gives a fuck if you're sorry, who gives a heck if
Oh, are we supposed to not swear? Because I've been swearing.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
I don't care, but
Leave it out.
anyways, who cares if your Xiangling is dependent on Xingqiu if your other team is going to be a Xiao team or a Ganyu team, or you wouldn't use Xingqiu anyways.
Right.
And if you own that Ganyu or Xiao, then like Xiangling being Xingqiu dependent doesn't really matter. And then is pulling for child all that useful? Well, it becomes less useful, right?
But I think that's also something, like, I was the one who added this topic to the list because I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and also I briefly considered making a YouTube video talking about my opinion on this, and then recorded it and realized I didn't want to edit it, so it's probably not happening. But that's also like a really important factor in what makes Ganyu and Xiao strong, because I definitely remember, especially when like Xiao first came out, everyone was considering, well, how does it compare to Diluc Vape? How does it compare to Zhongli Vape? How does it compare to like these other top meta teams? Like that, as long as he's within range, that doesn't really matter because he doesn't use any of the same units as them.
He
Like
allows
that's a
you to run
huge.
the other strong comp. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Also-
probably Xiao and Ganyu's biggest strength outside of their actual absolute power level strengths, is that they enable you to run a vaporized team on the other side without having to have a child, or I guess a Kokomi.
And I think that actually, like, since we're talking about Xiao, I think the overall community's perception on Xiao is like really scuffed right now because people just think that he doesn't have good single target, which is very wrong.
If you
Because
can
people,
collision plunge, it's very,
yeah,
very
exactly.
Collision Plunge is so cracked.
In all the situations where you need single target damage, you can collision plunge.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I assume that some people that are watching don't know what collision plunge is. Basically, when you do a plunge attack, the usual damage is like when you land, it does an AoE around you. But if you hit an enemy midair while you're plunging, it does an additional instance of damage, which is about half the damage of a low plunge. So you gain like 50% DPS from hitting the collision plunge, which is huge.
Yeah,
right?
no,
50% DPS is the equivalent of a Bennett.
Yep.
Like you guys can open up Genshin, go to like stats, and like go to like normal attacks. You see like there's 3 plunge values.
Yep.
The one that is not like put together, the one that does not have 2 together, is the collision plunge damage, which is a lot.
Now, the thing to note with the
That's
collision
good.
plunge is that the actual hitbox interaction to make a collision plunge happen is a lot smaller than just Zhao hitting the enemy. So you do
Yeah.
have to kind of practice it against the specific enemies, figure out what the timing is for you jumping over them, and then doing the attack to make it work. But it is a thing that, like Zajef said, you can consistently do on any unit that single target matters on in the Abyss.
Yeah, like the ones you can't do it are the ones that have really small hitboxes. Like
Yeah. And those are the cases where his strength, which is AoE, matters more anyway. So
yeah, exactly. And
Like
a lot
Zhao-
of people don't.
Zhao real good.
Sorry. Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is like even units like Maiden or Tenten mages or Pyro agents, they have that collision plunge.
Yep, and this is also a big part of what makes like Ganyu so strong, because in terms of absolute power level, Ganyu's already like way up there. But
Yeah.
the simple reality is you can literally run anything with Ganyu as long as you have a second cryo and you're doing top tier damage. You can run literally anything with her, and all she has to do is charge shot things and pop her ult and be funneled
That's
by
not
another
even the best
cryo.
way to play her.
Yeah, like, and then like
So
And then she
funny.
has niches with different team comps.
Yeah,
and
then she has, like,
builds where
Melt and
she has-
Morgana and
yeah,
shit.
Mel has incredible single target.
Morgana
and
is
Morgana is like
the
so
best
good
AoE
in
in the game.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so-
but the simple fact that she is so flexible and doesn't have unit dependencies other than I need another cryo unit to bat me and give me cryo resonance makes her incredibly valuable because you can just run your best other team on the other side and then just have Ganyu shoot shit.
Yep.
There's a lot of units that I would consider like really strong pickups if you pick them up in like pairs, right? I
Yeah.
talked about it on stream, like assuming you had like the 4 stars, right? Childe, Hu Tao are like completely orthogonal to each other, meaning the units that they want don't really overlap at all.
Yeah, that was the thing
Meaning
I wanted to talk about in the
Picking
video.
both of them up is really high
It's
value
huge,
because
huge.
they clear very well.
Yeah, and just to clarify, not playing them together, okay?
Please
Do
no.
not play
No,
them
please
together.
no.
Play them separately on
There
different
was
teams.
I will not mention their name, but when Hu Tao came out, there was a content creator who I cringed at because they were asked in their chat about is Hu Tao a good pick up it, and they were just like, yeah, just run them with Childe, you'll have a great team. And I cringed very, very hard, but
Oh,
I think unit dependency ultimately depend on your account. It just like what do you have
It
in your
does.
account.
I think
it's
it
not
depends
like
on
yeah.
what it depends on what type of the unit it is.
And
So-
the account.
This tied a lot more to Art's point, but I think unit dependency is like an effect of unit homogenization. We have a lot of units that like do a lot of things that are like the same to each other, or like they
Half pyro
share like the
carries.
same theme and like functions. Yep, like all pyro carries in a sense. And the thing is, I don't think unit homogenization matters that much if they are the core of a team, or like they pivot a team in a direction that is different from like the unit that share the same function as them. Like
It's actually
So-
really interesting to think about.
mm,
Like
I think
Kazuha, for
sorry.
example, overlaps a ton with a lot of the other anime units, but
yep,
he's
he pivots
unique
scene
enough
in
and
other ways,
has
yeah.
he has like his own kind of unique identity still, which is I,
I mean
think
he
a
has
pretty
unique
good
comps that he
indication of good
specifically
design.
enables
Mhm.
better.
And I think that the biggest, the most criminal thing about Kazuha is that people just think of him as like the animal unit that you run on your team instead of another animal unit. But he's so good with Venti.
Like one of the things is this gets like pretty convoluted and kind of complicated, but
Mhm.
units like Kazuha, in my opinion, they pivot comms outside of like their normal rotations and their normal functions. Like if you take like Mel Ganyu comm, he like changed your rotation pretty radically, and like
Mhm.
your playstyle, even though your playstyle
You
stays,
can actually play
Yeah.
Melganyu from range.
You could
What?
actually play it
Yep.
without dying.
Yep. he pip and like you say, like double animal with Kazuha, or like even even comms where like we say him as like in quotations sucrose replacement, he changes them a lot, especially in Hu Tao and Chao comm. Like
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
his field time and like the ways you can like apply pyro, like the way you can like play the AoE out and like change your rotation is so much more versatile than a sucrose. So I think like a unit like him who like overlaps a lot with our unit that you can even say they homogenize. Like he has parts of Venti kit, and he also has parts of sucrose kit, but he changes the way you play the game so much that I think he's a very good design. But like
Yeah, I
someone
agree.
like
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys know why? You guys know why the thing about Kaza? The only reason Kaza is not a must roll is because Sucrose exists.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you can do like most of the time, or depend on the comp, but most of the time you could
Most
get
of what-
similar results.
There are a
Most of what
handful of
Kazuha can
comps
do-
that Sucrose can't replace a Kazuha, but it's a very small handful.
But there are comms that Kazuha can't replace Sucrose in,
like
or can't
Taser,
replace her
right?
effectively. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Taser.
Lol,
Taser is such an underrated comp, and
Which
it's
means
so good.
if Jeff just gets C6 Kazuha.
But I think in general, if Sucrose didn't exist, Kaza would be probably the best pull in the game and you must pull as a 5-star.
I mean, if we get another black hole character with fucking VV
Oh, yeah.
on them, then suddenly Venti's
And
not
yeah.
I don't think he
Tenandayo
would-
at the top. But
I don't think he would reach Bennett
Venti?
levels.
Oh no, I mean
Mm.
5 stars. That's what I meant.
5 stars. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd reach Venti.
I think
like,
he's close. I don't know which one is be better. I think it's very
honestly, I think he's pretty close to that
I think
level.
if Sucrose didn't exist, but Sucrose existence drop him a little bit lower.
Yeah, I think my main thing about the unit dependency thing is that we all agree that it does matter, but it does depend on your accounts, on what kind of teams you're running, etc., etc., etc. I think my big thing about this, though, is that, and one reason I wanted to discuss it in this podcast, is that it feels like it's a thing that's very often brushed over. Like, with content creators or anyone talking about guides, like, they'll mention, oh yeah, you have a child. If you have a child, you can run it with Zhongli, and that's like the end of the conversation of, oh, but you also get to use Xingqiu on your other team, which is incredibly valuable, because fucking everyone wants to use a Xingqiu in their team, pretty much. And same with Hu Tao and Bennett. Having Bennett in your other team is insanely valuable. And it feels like it's a thing that kind of gets brushed over because people care too much about comparing role competitors. Like, I remember having discussions about Childe back in Keqingmains where people were like, well, is it even better than running a Xingqiu in single target, especially with a C6 Xingqiu? Like, who cares? You get Xingqiu on your other team.
It's hard to really say, or it's even hard to mention. I write it into like the Before You Wish scripts, like for KQM, like for Kokomi, I believe it specifically at the end. I write, yeah, if you have like Mona or Childe or Xingqiu, you probably really don't need this unit. But the thing is like, the reason why people can't really bring it up is because even if you say, yeah, you can use Xingqiu to your other team, people don't know what that means. People don't know how to build teams. Like, honestly.
Yeah, it's something I wish I had done more as a content creator, was just guides about, hey, here's the strong team of the week, and that would last me like fucking 40 weeks worth of content. Like,
there's no springboard from going from casual to actually knowing how to play the game. Yeah. There's very few guides, like, yeah, you can find a video here and there about like ICD or whatever, but they're like, half of my chat probably doesn't even understand why like running Zhongli is bad for a team, or like they probably couldn't explain why you shouldn't run Hu Tao with 4 TF, things like that. Like,
I bet you most of Tuner's chat could explain why Zhongli is bad with how many times we had to defend it on stream, but
I think it's worth mentioning. It's worth exploring a little bit more, because that's going to be taken out of context if we don't.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Zhongli isn't inherently bad.
Yeah.
But in terms of like your actual team DPS, the resistance reduction he provides and the like amount of times that you get to tank a hit instead of dodging, which can make you lose DPS.
Yeah.
Right. They're not really made up for by his field time requirements compared to other units.
Yes.
And if what Zhongli does is he makes you from, oh no, I got hit and I got staggered or I died, to, well, I didn't get staggered or didn't die, then he's very good. But if he makes you go from I had to dodge to I didn't have to dodge and tank the hit and I was fine, then he's not nearly as good. He's still fine. He's still a good option in certain teams, but overall he becomes a lot weaker.
Yeah, kind of like the way I guess I summarize Zhongli now is that if you want a defensive option for comfort, he is the absolute best unit in the game for it, hands down, no question.
Yep.
And in certain teams too, his comfort enables you to play it more reasonably, like a Ganyu Melt team without Kazuha. But at the end of the day, his job is to be a comfort and defensive pick, and he's incredibly good at that, but he's not supposed to be like I want to min-max my DPS on my team pick. He's not going to, compared to a lot of other possible options you could replace him in the team with, he's not going to increase the team's DPS as much.
Yep.
Like, my issue,
fine. That's
like,
balanced.
I think like I think like Genshin, Genshin has this really unique problem. Some of the like RPG or like team-based games that I've played is that in Genshin, like, we are forced into like playing like a team-based game with like 4 characters, and like the whole game is designed around 4 characters so much that a lot of players, or even like people who are like interested in TC, does not really understand like each unit and like themselves a unit in a vacuum. Like, they don't understand like everything that a unit can provide, what they're good at, what they're bad at, like as a whole package. But like, it's usually you have a comp, and then people just think about like that unit, how they place in that specific comp, and they don't think more about that, and like it creates like knowledge gaps in the way that a unit functions, and it really create like skewed perceptions of like what a unit can do and what a unit can and cannot do.
I think the
Like-
best example of that is Sucrose.
Yep.
Because people use her in like a Xiangling comp or whatever, and they're like, yeah, well, Sucrose is an EM buffer that can also VV.
Yep,
But-
and like they just think about it in like that context, right? They don't think about first
I'm
like
telling
the
you,
whole.
Mhm.
people don't even think about it on that level. Okay, if you pulled Echo, no, I'm not even joking. If you pulled Echo into here right now, and you asked him what Sucrose or Raiden does for a team, he wouldn't know. They don't.
True.
People literally don't know, and they don't care.
And I was
Okay.
about to say too,
True.
that's another
I don't think we should expect like people to care, but if like someone like is willing to like go into a conversation about what a unit can do as a whole package and like, rate that unit, especially supports. I think like supports suffer from this knowledge gap the most because
Mhm.
a lot of their kits are about versatility and utility more than like pure damage.
I'm not
Like-
bullying Echo or anything here. Like, and it's not like I'm telling. The point is that like casual players don't engage with the game in any more like in any capacity that is even remotely similar to how we engage with it. Like a
Mhm.
casual player will literally pick up a unit because they look cool or they like their waifu or husbando, and that's it. Their team comp is literally just their favorite units.
I
right?
mean, even
Like-
for like the people who do care to some degree, but aren't at the point of actually engaging with theory crafting communities and whatnot,
They
they care about. There's a reason why like hard carry comps are so popular because it's so much easier to simply go through your like entire line of supports, press all the buttons, and then just beat something over the head with like your main
True.
carry for the
Mhm.
entire
they care
time.
about the caricatures of like how TC evaluates units.
Yeah.
It's not that they really know why Xingqiu is good or why Xiangling is good. They just know that we say it's good, so that's what we say. They say that Vaporize is good, but they don't understand that the highest damage comps in the game don't even touch Vaporize or Melt, right?
Yep.
But like they only engage with like the caricature, the most simple of our arguments.
Pyro
which is-
Impact. Woo.
yeah. Like the idea that like Pyro Impact even exists, or the idea that Electro is a
Lol.
bad unit, or the idea that like I don't know, like the impression that like Animo is a weak unit. It's just, or like the idea that like an element can be solely carried by like one unit. It's
Yep.
I think
I
people
mean-
also like even like theory crafters who like might engage with the community to some extent. Even they might have misconceptions of like how good a unit is, how you should build them, because it's just like team comp building and team comp calculations are so difficult. Like I'm sure Zajef knows this. Doing a team
I mean,
comp
like-
calculation for damage is literally like the hardest shit you can do in Genshin.
Forget
It takes like
even
hours
like that.
for each team.
Mhm.
Forget
So,
even
like-
like that. Forget like actually calculating out a full team damage comp. Just understanding the threads that go between each of the 4 units on
Yeah.
your team on how they interact is beyond even most people who care about min-maxing their DPS.
Yeah, like
Understanding that in like a Zhongling like Sucrose vape team, that Bennett is providing ult snapshots for every character on the team. Sucrose is swirling pyro so she can VV and EM buff Zhongling, who then snapshots that, and then Xingqiu is starting off so you can get, you know, your Hydra application and is applying the
Yep.
Hydra application to a single target, and then also Bennett then also later has to come back and funnel Zhongling so you can get your full rotation off. Just those like strings attached to all the characters interacting is like way beyond what most people can conceptualize for a team comp.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
why
so, I mean-
replacing Sucrose with Chongyun or with Raiden or whatnot, how that changes those strings that are attached with each other.
this
Mhm.
bridges us
And, like-
perfectly into the next topic. So
Oh no.
does TC
Oh,
matter,
no.
and should people listen to TCers? Now, Genshin is
No.
ultimately a casual focused game, and while we discuss TC topics, we're not laying down the law. Theory crafting often gets a bad rep because so many people in the community can come off as holier than thou, and many of our arguments probably aren't given the proper amount of nuance that we typically would ascribe.
Mm.
Yeah,
Again,
so
like it goes back into like it's very hard to like discuss multiple TC topics with multiple people at the same time, which is very much the case in like a lot of public forums like Reddit or Discord. And I my opinion is that TC should TC I think should be split into two main main groups. The first is the general TC where we try to makes the casual experience a lot more enjoyable, and the one where the other group is where we min-max just for fun. And I think the min-max just for fun should always be on the background of making the casual experience more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's part of why I would have been enjoying seeing KQM put out, the short videos explaining stuff that pretty much just give you the general lay of the land and this is what's good with what, this is how things compare, blah blah blah. That kind of give those snapshots or sound clips that people need to know the results of theory crafting without actually having to understand the theory crafting. Because even though we talked about earlier how, people Tenten was talking about how people will just repost content as here, this is why Chi-Chi's bad or whatever. The reality is that's how most people are going to consume this kind of thing, and so making sure you have an accurate way to disseminate that in the results of the theory crafting so that general people can understand it is pretty important. It's what I generally try to do with a lot of the stuff we did on YouTube, although I did definitely get bogged down in numbers more times than I care to count, but...
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
think you can
honest.
compare it kind of to research papers.
Yeah.
You don't need to understand a research paper, but it's valuable to read a reporter who or someone who knows a bit about the research paper and is trying to
say it's
explain it to the
valuable when
general
they
audience.
report it correctly.
Yeah, when they report it correctly.
There's a lot of problems with that not happening. But
yeah, true.
I'll be honest, I think it's kind of if it's if you care, then you care. If you don't care, then you don't care. This is why I don't like it when people just forward a video, because then you're putting it in the face of someone who probably don't care. And if you don't care about Theorycrafting, you don't care about beating the abyss efficiently or even beating the abyss in general, then you just don't care. Then you don't care about but at the same time, then you don't care if we talk about stuff national team is Morgana team is really good, because that's not your main field of focus. And the usual comparison I use is actually, and I found it really good, as Pokemon. And it's interesting because Pokemon, is it the casual game? I think most people will agree Pokemon is a very casual game. You can play it however you want. You can just play your favorite Pokemon. You like Pikachu? Okay, you play Pikachu. You like Charizard? Okay, you play Charizard.
And you got people like Jin Farai trying to hit top 100 ranking leaderboard consistently.
So most people who play Pokemon probably don't properly draft a team, probably don't use the right combo, probably don't use the right counter against the opponent Pokemon. You don't use... people don't care, a fire type is better than a grass type. People don't care. They just use their favorite Pokemon. They just spam that one move that make their Pokemon strong, and they beat the game fine like that. But at the same time, there are people who do Pokemon tournament, right? Yep. They research what's the best combo for their team. They compete against other players who want to do the same. So Pokemon is a perfect example where if you want to play as casually, fine. If you want to play your favorite Pokemon, fine. But there are people, and you should, both sides matter. It's there are people who will want to play the very, very best Pokemon and draft the very best Pokemon team because that's what they care about, right?
I don't think it's a perfect comparison.
Yeah, there is
because in Pokemon, you can't spend $1,000 to get a stronger Pokemon.
Okay, imagine if Pokemon's gacha game. Just imagine.
Yeah, that's kind of the big difference, is that there is the innate issue of people spend a lot of money on these things.
To a certain extent, some players that want to enjoy the game casually end up feeling forced to spend money because they struggle.
I actually saw that one. I like
that's something that is actually kind of a problem. And what do you do about that? That's why I feel the need and the drive to put out theory crafting content, because sure, not everyone cares about it, but if you're struggling, I'd rather you come across a video that tells you, hey, Xiangling's very good, here's how you make her work, than a video that tells you, wow, I pulled for C6 Chi-Chi, so much damage!
Lol. Yeah, look at my 5-digit physical damage numbers.
Guys, Kokomi is child power creep. Just
Lol.
like,
You know,
I mean-
I saw this at work and I was molding. Someone
Lol.
literally at my workplace said, Kokomi is fine, guys. She can do 1 million damage. Like she used
Lol.
the fact that Kokomi can hit 1 million damage to justify
Thanks.
Kokomi.
I mean, I love Tony Toe's content, but Jesus Christ, the places people take Tony Toe's content.
It wasn't even Tony.
Tony
so, but-
literally has disclaimers on his videos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
exactly.
does.
This does
But
not make a
I
unit
can
good.
tell you
Don't
from my
watch
experience
that.
being a Monster Hunter and Genshin creator, it does not matter how many goddamn disclaimers you put on your content. People will take it out of context for stupid arguments.
But yeah,
That-
as
that
much as
being
I would like
said,
to, I like
about-
to. Go.
Sorry, go ahead.
I like to agree with Zajef. Like I think the most important reason and the reason why I do TC content is so that hopefully someone out there can save their money. I saw this really long Reddit post the other day and I found it a really good read. And basically he started the game and he played his favorite character, but he also wanted to clear Abyss because beating Abyss is like an achievement. It's like completing the hardest content in the game. You feel like you beat the game, right?
And
Or
real
you feel
talk, that's
like
the
you
only
did-
reason to
This
do
is
it.
the
Yeah,
idea.
Yeah,
It's
and
fucking
like,
wild.
a
So
lot
you
of
pretty
people
much-
think
Yeah.
that
You
Abyss is
strive
about
for
the
that.
primo gems, and like it's
Mm-mm.
not, man.
Mm-mm.
Abyss
just-
is the equivalent of clearing the games and the game in Dark Souls. Like it's you don't do it because it gives you something. You do it because clearing
It's-
something that is challenging brings a sense of achievement and it
Yeah.
feels good.
So anyway,
Yeah.
this person wanted to clear Abyss, but he couldn't do it. But the character he actually used in question was Hu Tao. He actually said who was Hu Tao. And he couldn't do it, so he was like, Hu Tao was not that good at C0, so he put it for C1. And then he was like, Hu Tao without Homa is not that good. And then he put it for Homa. And then even
Mhm.
with his C1 Homa Hu Tao, he still
Ooh.
struggled a bit with Abyss. Now, obviously, it's not like I wouldn't say like if Hu Tao is a good character or not, but obviously this person might not be too good at the game. So even with a C1 Hu Tao and a Homa, he struggled with Abyss, which people like that exist, right?
My first thought as well
Eventually,
is team
yeah.
comps.
And then the reason why I find it a really good post is reading is like he was like he keeps struggling with Abyss, and the only solution he found was to keep spending more and more money, putting for more constellation, getting better artifact, in hope that he cleared Abyss. And then
very slow.
he discovered about Theorycrafting, is what he said. And then he was like, I play Morgana, I play National, and I cleared Abyss so easily. And the ultimate conclusion was he wished he discovered about Theorycrafting earlier, and he wished he discovered a team like Morgana and National earlier, so that he didn't have to spend those money for his C1 Hu Tao and Homa, because he could have just used it something else to clear the Abyss instead.
Mhm.
I
And,
hope
like,
you guys never
first-
run into the people.
I'll link it to you guys if you guys want to see it.
Who have C6. It's just a quick one. I hope you guys never run into people who have like things like C6 Ganyu, but they still can't clear the Abyss because they just don't want to learn how to play the game or don't like care to learn about the game, and then they complain. And then they complain. They exist. Okay, I've talked
I mean,
to
this
one
is
before.
this is also part of why I was recently doing like my duos clears, because at the end of the day, play and like understanding how to play the game well and team synergy matters so much more than constellations or pulling for 5-star weapons or shit like that.
Mhm.
Ultimately,
And, like,
like my first thought when Tenten was talking about the Reddit thread is like, what team was he running with Hu Tao? Was it even a vape team? Because like even like a Hu Tao vape team with like double cryo is a very strong team and not too difficult to play as long as you know the rotation of going down the line and pressing everyone's buttons before you do Hu Tao. But yeah, Hu Tao's like base raw value without vape or anything else is not that great.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is that like you often see people complaining that like those meta players just shove things down our throat. They just they keep posting on Reddit. I don't want to see meta posts, and like to a certain extent, there are definitely like Theorycrafters or meta players that are that are toxic towards casual players, but also like it is healthy for a casual player, at least to some extent, to be exposed to some like concept of meta, because if they're not, then they might be under the impression that they need to spend if they want to like clear the content. And one of the problems with that is that like, yeah, sure, it's kind of annoying for you if you don't care about meta and you see meta posts every once in a while. But also, is that being annoying for you really more important than the people that are gonna spend $200 because they're not exposed to it. And like,
Yep.
it's hard to find that middle ground.
Yeah. Like, so I
There's a-
think it's a balance between having like enough knowledge, like giving like casual players enough knowledge that like in like free streams, like certain moments, like in their like experience, they know like at this point there's like one single optimal decision to make, and like information overload. Where like one of the things about Genshin TC that like is quite unique is that the TC process is very open. Like I think like Genshin TC is very open to like everyone can see what we do, and like our content has a lot of views, and like a lot of people read them, watch them, so they see the process and they can see like even like the very small nuances, and like I feel like it creates this distance between Theorycrafters and casual players where like they don't understand what we're working with. So, and we keep pushing out like so many content with repeating results, and people feel like we just like harping on something that they don't understand about, and like they don't try to like at one point it becomes annoying, right? People don't want to like read everything just to like understand like this one single point. So I think like we should have like a lot of results ready for people to like make decisions when they need them. But having too much information out there, and like a lot of people can read them and like misconceptions about what TC is, or like the roles of TC, it alienates a lot of casual players.
It does.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and like
Yep.
Genshin being a gacha game in particular makes things even more complicated because
Mhm.
because of the fact that at the end of the day, the people who kind of like get slooped up in the algorithm on YouTube and Reddit and whatnot are generally speaking the whales. And regardless of, I mean, I'm not going to say every whale doesn't understand how game mechanics work well or team synergies work properly, but at the end of the day, a lot of whales are able to simply get by on pure numerical value from having spent a lot of money. And
Mhm.
a lot of people
Mhm.
who a lot of people who are looking actively for advice on how good new characters are, how to run a character properly, what teams to run them on, things like that, will, if they aren't familiar enough with the community and know TC exists, they'll be watching these videos from these people who may not actually understand how to build a very strong team around a new character, or maybe building their team around the fact that, you know, Raiden C2 or something like that. So they go for that Raiden hyper carry setup or something like that. And
yeah.
that's a big problem we run into, is that even though people may be wanting to learn this information, the stuff that gets put in front of them is not necessarily good information, and it's not necessarily going to be helpful to them.
Oh,
And
do-
it's
do we wanna
really
go
hard
there?
to know
Yeah,
what
if
information
you're-
is the accurate one, because
If
there
you're
are
a new
some
one,
people
how can you tell?
that there are some people that present themselves as doing the math and making sure, but they like their
Have you
assumptions are
seen? Okay,
incredibly
We're
skewed
going
towards
there.
whales.
I'm not gonna. I don't. I'm not like trying to call like anyone out, but like, have you seen I Win to Lose's like most recent video on like what units are like the best to clear and stuff like that?
Which
No, can't say
I
I
haven't.
have.
There's
Wait, which one
there's
is
a
that?
lot of it's like one of his most recent ones.
Wait, I
It's
thought
like
we're not supposed to
DPS
name drop
comparisons
here.
for like a bunch of units.
Hold on.
Which one against 12-1, 12-3-1 or 12?
Yeah, I think it's 12-3-1.
Okay.
So the point is like it's not like I don't like I Win a Loser or whatever. It's just content like that is very hard to like. If imagine you're a casual player, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between I Win to Lose's video and like Ziox's video? I Win to Lose has a like ton of disclaimers at the beginning. He presents his math very well. The video is very well edited. He lays out the assumptions that would appear to be like sufficient enough to draw a conclusion, right? And then at the end, he even says, "Oh, this doesn't really mean anything." But by the time they're already at the end of the video, their sentiments have already been like changed by the video itself, right?
And that's for the
I'm
people
also-
that make it to the end, which is
Yeah,
not a
like-
large portion.
Which,
of
if
the
you've
YouTube
ever
audience.
had a YouTube video and looked at your analytics, you know is an incredibly small percentage of viewers.
Yeah.
There's like Theorycrafting is fundamentally like a math-based process, and like you can say like it's a scientific process, and like if you have like work on like academics and stuff, like the thing is, Genshin doesn't have peer review. Like, I feel like peer review and like a definitive authoritative voice in the community for theory crafting does not exist yet. So anyone can like present like their calculations, even though like their process seems scientific enough, like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's it doesn't necessarily mean that like it's good theory crafting. Just like a grad student, like yeah, like they can write a paper, like they know how to write a paper, like they know how to conduct research, but doesn't mean like their work may be like as quality as like a renowned researcher, for example.
I can also name
And
like
if-
10 different studies that have been misused by media that
Oh my
was
god.
then later shown to not be good science, but didn't stop,
mean,
you know.
fuck.
Yeah, anyway.
Does TC matter, and should people listen to TCers? I'm the head
No.
of Theorycrafting at Keqingmains, and Ayzel's the head of Theorycrafting at Wangsheng, but we haven't really talked about like what we think about it yet. So I'll give the
Honestly-
floor to Ayzel real quick and see.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think that there are some things that people should care about, and there are some things that people should not care about. I would say you probably shouldn't care about too much the unit comparisons, the like 8 and 2 CJ, all of the like random combo stuff. But there are like specific things that I think casual players should care about. Those are things that like you can do to improve your damage that have nothing to do with like the in-depth theory crafting. Those are things like doing your rotations slightly faster, because cutting down on a D-Look rotation by 2 seconds is more of a damage increase than going from an R1 to an R5 Wolf's Gravestone.
Mm-hmm.
And things like getting your buffs up correctly, like I talked about this earlier with Xiangling, that's 2.5 times damage increase. Doing all of these things correctly is going to massively improve a casual player's gameplay and results without necessarily having them like need to listen to a bunch of theory crafting, like no ICD and know all of these like random things.
Yeah, forget even like doing a Diluc rotation faster, doing a Diluc rotation correctly in the first place.
Exactly.
Swirling the correct element with a sucrose in the first place, not throwing out a sucrose ult that eats your vapes, like even just basic stuff like that is stuff that people don't understand. And Tuner and I in one of our recent podcasts, I was lamenting about how I kind of regret switching the channel's focus over to, you know, assessing new character strength every time a new character came out every 3 weeks, because what I wanted to make was content about the game mechanics and how to improve your play and proper rotations and proper team comps and things like that, because that's the stuff that's more interesting to me. I just felt like Zajef and Tenten were mentioning, I felt like an obligation to assess character strength because people spend money on this shit.
Yeah.
But what I really wish I could have gone back and actually done and probably would have enjoyed doing is content about how you do your rotations better, what a rotation looks like, why these teams synergize well, why these units work well together, etc., etc. These like fundamentals of playing the game that people just don't understand. Same thing happened in Monster Hunter 2. The favorite video I ever made was my guide about like switch axe combos and how to play switch axe in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. But what we got bogged down with and why I got so tired of making Monster Hunter content was because we just made the meta series, because that's what people wanted, was what set to make a number bigger.
One thing is more tangible than the other, right? Like, it's really hard to see like how having an optimal rotation or like reduce your rotation timers, like increase your damage compared to like building this weapon, rolling for this.
Yep.
rolling
I mean,
for
that's
this
the issue with
constellation.
casual understanding of Raiden.
It's
Your turn.
yeah. It's pretty difficult for me to say, to be honest. I've been like in the front of theory crafting and Gekium since February. I'm like a really big reason why KQM is so big as it is today for TC. Like YouTube channel, the website, the theory crafting library, all of that, the Twitch. I was kind of pushed by me like very early on, and at some point, I think that TC has grown a little too big in KQM to really accommodate for everyone and everything. In general, I still think that theory crafting is important because there's just so much bad information about the game out there that could lead people to make really poor decisions whether that's with their investment or with their money. No, I don't want anyone to really play the game and waste their time, and feel like they're really weak because they made a mistake somewhere along the way. If you look at my account, I have an R2 Scoured Harp, and that was before I joined KQM, right? Um, and in general, like that's kind of like the idea of KQM at its core. I think in the theory README section, it's written that the goal is to curate or provide high quality content to consume, um, and to minimize the ability for people to manipulate our findings. And that's kind of like the general idea. I think as long as you find a group of people that isn't like really too swept up in the idea of meta or really too swept up in like the idea of playing like whoever you want, you can play the game, manage your resources well, and have a lot of fun, right? And you can still play however you want. Because the thing is, like, everyone really does kind of engage with Genshin in a different way. Everything is like different thresholds of like efficient or different thresholds of like fun. And there's not really any easy way to account for all of that. So, um, yeah, I think like being irresponsible with like the information that you spread is kind of deplorable. I don't know how I would feel if Gekium just like blatantly just put out really shit information. I don't know. It just
Haha, that never
I don't know.
happened. May
Yeah.
28th.
Haha.
Oops.
Oh
Ha.
no.
Oops.
Ha.
We don't talk about
That
that.
happened.
We don't
we
talk
don't
about
talk
it.
about that one. Yeah.
So
But I mean,
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Like yeah, you should listen to TC, but like play however you want.
Yeah, I think my personal opinion of it, I guess from a content creator standpoint, is that I don't think like you guys were mentioning, all the really in-depth TC stuff, people don't really need to care about that. Like difference between certain combos that have frame differences that maybe increase DPS a little bit, that kind of stuff. I do think that the entire community as a whole would heavily benefit from learning more of the fundamentals from TCs though. Like, especially because like I was talking about, so much of the content, like just in terms of raw views and attention that gets seen, is stuff from a lot of people who don't necessarily understand the fundamentals well and are conveying bad information over because of that. And even just the fundamentals of like, what is the best set to put on this character? What are good team synergies and good unit synergies? Like, how do you do your rotations properly? Stuff like that is, I feel like, something that the community as a whole, even the casual audience, or even like the in the middle, I care about clearing the abyss, but I'm not going to go through spreadsheets on a TC server. People, like, that's something the community could hugely benefit from, is taking that kind of information from TCs a bit more, and disseminating it a bit more.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this? Okay, I'll close it out real quick. Genshin is an easy game, but only if you want it to be, right? And TC's job is kind of to help you get to the point where you want to be playing at, right? If you like big damage, then TC can help. If you like playing the units that you like, then we'll have the resources available to play them the best that they can, right?
If you want to run Chi carry, KQM just put out a video about how to run Chi carry optimally.
Chi driver.
The
I mean,
next...
sorry, just last thing I wanted to like.
Yeah, go ahead.
It in that sense that like TC can like help a lot of casual players. Like, I'm really thankful that through like Zajef's content, I have at least some reach in the casual community, which like, and he also has some reach in the casual, well, a fuck ton of reach in the casual community. Like, his guides get hundreds of thousands of views. One of his guides hit 1 million views recently, and like,
Nice.
it feels really nice that so many people get exposed to content that is, at least to some extent, fact checked.
Yep. Nope, absolutely.
Yep. Oh, I actually did want to say something about fact checking. I know we mentioned earlier that like fact checking doesn't exist in TC.
It's peer reviewing.
Yeah, or peer review. Yeah. The thing is, like, people are willing to do it. Like, if you I know Zajef, you've said this in the past. You'll go around the servers, you'll search up your name, and like you'll get hundreds of results where people just like talking shit about you. Like people are willing to review other people's content. They are not
But
willing to actually go and talk to those people and be like, here's what I think is wrong. They'll just shit talk them in other places, which I think really sucks. Because it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about how TCers can be toxic. But it's not just that they can be toxic towards casual players. Like some of the most toxic interactions I've seen are between two different
Oh,
theory
absolutely.
crafters.
Absolutely.
Like I
You'll
absolutely
go to
agree.
like a server and you'll see people being like, Jinx
Yes.
sucks, or Zajef sucks, or
Lol.
Tenten sucks. I watched their video. I completely disagree with them.
It's actually such a bad problem. Like when we ban people from KQMTC, they go to other TC communities to
Yep.
shit talk KQM.
Oh,
It's
yep.
really bad.
Yeah.
Because I know the Mathlos Dash had a problem with it a while ago, and I know Wangsheng Funeral Parlor has a problem with it. When we ban people for being like really dumb or really rude in KQM, they just go somewhere else.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Like-
I saw like the worst thing is like I saw a guy who was like actively shit talking Keqingmains and saying that they don't listen to anything that like doesn't fit the dogma gets silenced. And like, no, dude,
Literally
you got
1984.
you got banned from the Theorycrafting because you kept repeating the same claims without providing any numbers. And like people ask you for numbers, and you were like, "No, give me time." And then you kept repeating the claims without actually going to do the numbers. Like that's why you got banned, not because
Or you got
they
banned
silenced-
because you were just being a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have logs of every like encounter of people like we banned on KQM. Like, I could make them public, but like, I don't want people to get like doxed on other servers because maybe they
Yeah.
get changed. But like, I have that doc so that I don't ever have to read an appeal for the ban, ever.
Yep.
Like
if you get
We had a
banned
similar
in
process
KQM
on the
from-
Mathlos
Yeah,
Nest.
so you can be mad at me all you want. You could be mad as all like if some of you in chat are banned from KQM, if I banned you or so one of my editors banned you, I am not going to unban you ever. Okay? The amount of like leeway
Lol.
we give to people, the amount of like warnings we give people before we do it is like way more generous than it needs to be. In fact, TC would probably be a lot better if I just handed out more of these things. But again, I don't care if you want to be a troll. Just go somewhere else and do it. Okay?
Yup.
Not here.
Like it's a very contradictory problem where like we want like our work to like reach as many people as possible, so we have like more people to like peer review them. But the amount like the people who like are capable of objective and like quality peer review are sometimes the people like that we already know and that we've already worked with for like many times before, and sometimes it creates like an echo chamber, even if we like it or not. Like I do think like even among like reputable Theorycrafters, there's a lot of echo chamber just because we've worked together for so long on so many projects that like a lot of like opinions just got like it just got reflected onto us, you know?
Yeah.
And but like when we're trying to like reach more people by like posting our work, we don't get quality people to peer review them. It's just people like don't agree with like the point we've given out, and then they just say a shit. Like it's so hard to like up the quality of your work.
Man,
my
it's
final
almost-
stance on that would be like they like people will agree with TC as long as they want to, like they want that conclusion. Okay.
Yeah,
Like when we said Raiden
be
was
the
bad,
best
there were so
Theorycrafter,
many people that were
worst
ass mad about it.
Like, you can be the best Theorycrafter today by posting X sheet, and you can be the worst Theorycrafter the second day by posting Y sheet. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Also, kind of on Zajef, you can go.
Yeah, I like from a content creator's perspective though, like that peer review is like it's so hard to parse through because there's so much criticism that's actually just bullshit. People calling you the R word because you said you didn't like that you thought their favorite character was bad, and like I've made some mistakes in the past, right? I had an old Hu Tao calc that used, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 N2Cs, which I like is definitely on the low end. And I use that calc to support that Hu Tao doesn't even actually have better single target than Xiangling. But the reality is that's only if you're like a relatively casual player, and I didn't provide that nuance because I myself didn't understand that nuance all that much. But when I got criticism for that, it was in the middle of people calling me the R word, of people saying that Xiangling was worse than Xinyan, like it's so hard to know which one of the criticism is actually valid. And when you're exposed, and when you actively try to find the criticism, you're exposed to so much hatred that it fucking hurts if you want to be open to criticism, because you have to actually consider that hatred to like, what if it's accurate? And like, it's so difficult, and I get why so many content creators just don't fucking bother, because it's rough on your mental health.
It's especially really bad when you're a streamer because it's happening in the moment. With YouTube videos, at least if there's some comments, A, comments will get upvoted to show whether there's more support behind it or not, and B, if it ever bothers me, I can just take a break and come back and look at it later because they're comments that are sitting there. But with streaming, it's especially rough because of how in the moment all of it is.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird double bind in that if you want, if you want peer review, you either get peer review from people that are just toxic to you, and they're like, you're stupid, your content sucks, and you just stop interacting with them altogether because you don't want to like talk to those kinds of people, or you start working with people that are like actually nice and will say things like, here are some errors in your assumptions that I think you could correct, and they actually bother to talk to you instead of like shit talking you in other servers. And then you like kind of get thrown into that echo chamber thing that Sitri was talking about, where the people that you work with because they're nice to you, like you're just in an echo chamber with them. So it's kind of like a lose-lose situation all around, just because people can't be nice on the internet apparently.
Man,
and also
people
like
being mean on the internet.
Sometimes some people pretend that they're open to criticism but aren't. Right?
We've had to call out so many motherfuckers because of this.
Like, you see people like saying like, "Hey, if I make a mistake, leave it down in the comment below," and then you do, and they make the same mistake 5 videos in a row, and it's like, why do you bother?
I don't think you. I saw your tweet the other day though. You said you didn't think you were built for streaming. You just need to start banning people. But
I do, but I can't because I can't. If I start banning people that flame me, then I'll also ban the people that flame me but have a point. And
that's the hard part of it.
If they care enough, they'll appeal it.
But like that's the thing. They don't care, but I do. I care if I put out shit that is actually not true. They might not, and they might just want to flame me. But if they have a point, I owe it to my community. I owe it to my credibility to listen to it.
So
it's hard.
I would recommend I would say you should probably open up like a different forum for like serious posting, like serious criticisms and stuff like that, and just have like a strict no flaming policy, because
that's
obviously like it's probably not good for your mental health, because you said like even one comment is enough to tick you off, right? Yeah. But like just ban them. Like if they're going to flame in your chat, just ban them. If they want to post serious feedback, post it in their Discord. If they think they're wrongfully banned, they can do an appeal, right? And that's funny content. For me personally, like I have a god complex, rule to your, so like I do not care. Like if some idiot wants to stun lock me in chat, I'll fucking grill the fuck out of him and then make sure he doesn't come back. I don't care. Or I say I don't care, right?
LOL.
I've never banned anyone. I've actually never like really banned.
You have no mods, Tenten. That's
no.
why.
I never actually
see. Me and, like,
no one ever argue with me in my chat. Everyone just complain on my Pepega gameplay.
Lol.
Everyone literally just spams Pepe W Tenten.
Yeah, everyone.
Yup. Okay. This is why I have a business partnership with Tuner, because Tuner's the one who handles the community side of
I think
that.
we're starting to go over time.
Yeah. So. We so we went off on not like a tangent, but kind of branched off into a different topic of like toxicity and like Genshin content. Did we want to do, which one of these topics did you guys want to do? There's Ren and Beto discussing whether or not Genshin has good or bad game design.
I gotta
for
hop off in
gameplay
like
challenge.
5
I think
minutes.
Jinx got
Sure,
me.
sure.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Did we want to wrap up here and then just take some
I
quick
think
questions
we
from chat?
talked
I think
plenty.
we can
Yeah.
wrap. I think we can wrap
we
up
can
here.
wrap
Yeah,
up.
this is already
We can save the others for
this
next.
is a pretty long podcast at this point.
Yeah, and I mean
Yeah,
we
I
can
think
we
about 2
can
hours.
definitely like
Do it
continue
again.
another time.
I think we should
Yeah.
do one, but I think if we have a chance, I think we should focus on the banner and stuff, like Hu Tao Chio
Yep.
and stuff. I think we should.
Yeah, I'm down.
Okay, yeah,
I'm
we can
definitely
do that
down to
real
do
quick.
this
I'm
again.
down for
This
that,
was
yeah.
entertaining.
So this is the first one where we
So-
just go over the general idea of Theorycrafting, and then we can focus more on
Yeah.
like the state of the
I
game,
think
like
it
banners.
was a very productive one. I think we can start inviting like other people too. There was
Mhm.
concern like that Cleeful wasn't invited, for example. And I know other guests like
Psyox.
Zanto or like maybe Ziox if he's interested, or like even Doug. Yeah, we can definitely invite more people. Tuner's also more than welcome. A lot more people. Echo is more than welcome. Yeah, but this is our first pilot of I don't know what to call it yet, if there is even going to be a name. Yeah,
Not
thank you
Roundtable.
everyone for joining. If you guys want to shout out your stuff, go ahead. We can start off with Jinx real quick, and we just go in a circle.
Oh, I make podcasts on YouTube sometimes now. I also shitpost on Twitter sometimes.
Are you planning on posting this to your channel?
Yeah, most likely, yes.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before people are watching it right now, and then they're like, "Wait a minute, I'm already on the channel."
I know a lot of people ended up joining late, so if you want to see the start of it, you want to see the whole thing, it'll be available on
Mhm.
Jinx's channel at
Yeah.
Jinx and Tuner Mathalos. I don't know
Mathalos
the full name.
Gaming. With
Yeah.
square
Post
brackets
the
because I
links
wanted
there.
to confuse the YouTube algorithm.
You can find like all their socials and stuff inside the YouTube descriptions and stuff like that. Yep.
Yep, I'll be linking everyone's socials. I just need to get a list of it and everything.
And then Zajef, you're up next.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel on which I don't post, Zajef77, and I have a Twitch channel on which I stream every day, also at Zajef77, and you can come say hi anytime. I sometimes bite, but generally don't.
I linked your Twitch and everything in the chat, so if you want to give Zajef a follow, you can always check out his fiery hot takes and reaction to different content. Maybe he'll watch the I Win to Lose video later. Oh wait,
Oh, also, if you like
already
these-
have watched it. My chat was
Lol.
yeah. Never mind.
Also, I should probably also mention that I do hang out with Tuner on his stream over at twitch.tv/Tuner, Tuner, and we do weekly podcasts kind of somewhat like this over there as well, so definitely come hang out there.
All right, linking Tuner's Twitch. Okay, and then Tenten.
Yeah, I don't know, post once in a while on YouTube. I think it's Tenten Gaming on YouTube or Games. I actually don't know which one is which nowadays. I don't know which one is which. I'm so confused.
It's
Oh my
Tenten.
God.
It's just 1010 on
It's
YouTube.
just 1010 on YouTube.
Really? It's
Yep.
I'll link it.
Weird.
Oh my god! Wait, your link. Wait, Tenten. Your link isn't even like
Yeah, you
Tenten. It's just.
it's this one. You fucking scuffed up the link.
Lol.
Tenten Gaming.
Lol.
And then Sitri, where can we find you?
Well, I usually hang out in Keqingmains or One Parlor. You can find me over there, or you can just check out my work on Keqingmain websites. I write some
Yeah.
guides on there.
We need to transcribe your EULA guides still. We're working
Yeah,
on
like
that.
it's been a month.
Okay, yeah, I know. I'm gonna ping 3B about it. Okay, and then Ayzel.
You can find me everywhere. I'm basically everywhere. Just ping me.
he's
Lol.
literally
yeah.
God. He's
Ayzel
literally
streams on
God.
here. Ayzel
Yeah.
voiceovers for our YouTube videos.
Yeah.
He's
I'll also probably be like getting some of my own YouTube content out. I was thinking of kind of doing some explanations. Like Gila threw this idea in chat earlier, but I was actually working on it. Just like a couple tips that you can use to improve your damage that most people don't cover. So like getting your buffs and rotations correct, cutting down rotation time, stuff like that. So look forward to that. I don't know whenever that will be out, but it will be out at some point.
and I'm so Ayzel's my vice head of Theorycrafting at KQM. Coerced into it, of course. Because nobody would want to do that job.
Literally just promoted me one day out of the blue.
Yeah.
David
I
talked
am
to me
probably
about
the
it,
most
it's like
overworked Theorycrafter in existence.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Ayzel
Pat,
does all the
pat.
math, does everything. Ayzel streams on this account sometimes, whenever he can, and then yep. I am Artesians. I'm the head of Theorycrafting at KQM. I've been kind of your host. So yeah, thank you everyone. I think it's been a successful podcast so far.
Yeah,
And
this
I
was
hope
fun.
that
It was
we
fun.
can all join each other again.
Yeah, I know people
Hopefully
are
we'll
really
have stuff
interested
to
in
talk
Tao and Hu
about.
Tao.
Yeah. With Thoma coming out and then Goro and Ito coming out. Maybe we'll have more to talk about another time, right?
Cool.
So Jinx is gonna leave. Do you want to do viewer questions if anyone else wants to stay? We'll just do a couple
Okay.
and then we
I
can
can stay
close
for
out.
about an hour or so.
Yep, I'll hop
Okay.
off. And
Yeah,
y'all
bye,
do that
Jinx,
thing.
and thank you for
I'm
joining.
See ya, Jinx.
Bye. Thanks
Thank
for
you for being
thanks
here.
for
See ya.
inviting me.
Yeah.
Bye.
It was fun.
I'm gonna hop off too.
Okay, bye Tenten.
See ya, Tenten.
You guys
Bye,
hang out.
Tenten.
1010 gaming.
Bye bye.
Bye.